Hey everyone, I'm Lily, and welcome to the next installment of my top cards for Commander Cube. This will probably be the last Magic video I do before we get into the craziness of Ravnica Allegiance, like set view and things like that, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. But today we're continuing backwards on the sets as we slowly work through it, and we're talking about Dominaria. Dominaria was a really cool set, especially for Commander and Commander derivative formats, in that it had a legendary matters themed, and legendary creatures are important for Commander. So if you haven't watched one of these videos before, I'm talking about the top 10 cards for Commander Cube. If you don't want to know what a Commander Cube is, it's like a cube, like the thing where you put in all the stuff and you draft it with your friends, but it's like not a booster draft, it's a cube draft. It's like that, where it's like a custom set of cards and things like that. But instead of constructing a 40 card limited deck, you construct a commander deck at the end. So when I'm talking about the top cards of this deck for Commander Cube from these sets, I'm not talking necessarily about the most powerful cards but I'm talking about the cards that are most unique. I'm looking for unique effects that you'd be happy, you would be excited to open. Like some cards, I'll have some honorable mentions at the beginning, which are good cards, and you should probably put them in the cube, but aren't super exciting. They don't really do anything new. But a few things I do not include is I do not include reprints. I might mess up and accidentally include a reprint at some point, but whatever, it happens. And I also do not include legendary creatures, which is very pointed for this one, because it's Dominaria had a lot of legendary creatures, and we're not going to be including any of them, just because every Commander Cube uses legendary creatures differently. Some draft them, some just have a library of legendary creatures to begin with, to get into. But either way, we'll be fine. And we're just not going to include them. So starting off, we have our first honorable mention, and that is Grow from the Ashes. It's a 3-mana rampant growth, so it's 3 mana, search your library for basic land, put it on the battlefield. Well, it's not quite rampant growth because it does come in untapped, which is sometimes relevant, but also has kicker, which turns into explosive vegetation, which gets you 2 of them. This is obviously just a very good ramp spell, and depending on how large your cube is, you're going to be including most ramp spells, especially green ramp spells, because it's if you're going to capture the essence of what green does in Commander, being very good at ramping is one of those things. And this is obviously a very good card. It's just, it doesn't do anything that other cards don't already do, but it's very good, and you should include it anyway. Likewise, Cast Down, it's just a solid black removal spell, but it doesn't do anything special or fancy or new. On Sarah's Wings, I include this one. This is a little bit interesting, but it's just it's a pretty good enchantment that if you're going for an enchantress theme, it could be one of those things that's you'd be happy to run in an enchantress auras deck or a Voltron build. But the thing is that it just isn't quite there to make it into the top 10. It's a very good card, and it works really well in those styles of decks. But it's not a card you're first picking. It doesn't really help define the archetype. It helps fill out your 99, but it doesn't really help the archetype very much, so that's why it's here. And then finally, Benelish Marshall. And this is an honorable mention, A, because it's just an anthem. He's a 3-mana 3/3 for white. He's just another anthem. And another thing is that Commander Cube, oftentimes most Commander Cubes kind of center around having 3 color decks. Sometimes Commander's 2 color decks and stuff like that, but in 3 or more colors, just triple white is just a really punishing cost to do. It can be really rough to cast, and you really need to be worrisome of triple colored cards, triple of one color I should say, just because it can be hard to cast, and it really does feel bad when from a player perspective, and then obviously from a design perspective, it feels bad to not be able to cast your cards. And that's why it's here. It's also just an anthem. There's many other anthems, and oftentimes I'd rather have one of the enchantment anthems, but he's there, and he's cool. But coming at number 10, we have Urza's Ruinous Blast. This is one of the legendary sorceries. Legendary sorceries wasn't a popular aspect of Dominaria. Most of them were not usable in draft just because they were unreliable, but you can only cast them if you control a legendary creature or a planeswalker, which commander isn't as much of an issue because you have a commander you always are. Usually you have one that you can cast, even if you don't have the mana for it or something, and that's obviously, but you do have easy access to be able to cast these, so that's not as much of a restriction. But this is a 5 mana, exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. This is one that it's just a neat effect. It's exiles all non-land permanents, which is just a really good wrath clause. And on top of that, just like the missing legendaries is an interesting thing. And well, I think there's an argument to be made that this could just be an honorable mention, because it is just another wrath, and you'll be running a lot of wraths in the cube. But I just feel like the fact that it is not color intensive in its mana cost, it exiles everything, and then it has this unique, like weird, like legendary build around thing, which is really neat. Also, just from the other side of the spell, one of the most annoying feelings in Commander is like when your commander just gets killed over and over again, like if the board's being wrathed over and over again, and then all of a sudden you can't cast your commander anymore, and that's not a great feeling. And this kind of like helps avoid that, as well as like also protects your commander, so you're not as like feeling like, oh, I'm not putting myself back even if my commander's on board. And there's enough unique stuff that goes on with this card that's why it's in the top 10 and not an honorable mention. Next up is Blackblade Reforged. It is a 2-mana legendary artifact or equipment, but it gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each land you control. So it essentially turns any equipped creature into like this huge, sizably massive. It has equipped 7 unless it's to a legendary creature, which then it equips 3. So, it's one of those things where it's like, obviously you have to have legendary creatures, but oftentimes for the center of some sort of like Voltron or artifact or equipment build, like this is one of those like really good equipments. Like it's one of the best equipments. I think like offensive equipments, I think there is like, that isn't like one of the swords. Okay, it's not one of the swords, but it's not like, it's not no feast and famine, but it's still like a really good, and also not like one that's also like, a lot of the equipment pieces I find, like a lot of the good equipments, like the top ends ones, specifically the swords, they're kind of pricey, and commander cubes are kind of daunting undertakings to put together anyway. I do want to do a series of videos on like how to start building your own commander cube, and especially on a budget and things like that. But Blackblade Reforged is just one of those that it just kind of fits that role very well, and it's just a real solid thing. And, well, I don't think it's really something you're excited to first pick. It's one of those cards that's like, once you're already kind of into this archetype, you're really happy to pick it up. That's also, it's just generically good in any deck that you're going to have your commander out, so, yeah. Next up is Fall of the Thran. It is a 6-mana saga, with Chapter 1 is Destroy All Lands, and then 2 and 3 are each player returns 2 land cards from their graveyard to the battlefield. Now, mass land destruction is a touchy subject in Commander. A lot of people don't like it. I mean, I think I'm one of the ones included that just I don't feel like mass land destruction isn't a fun part of the game. Like, I think it's like cool and like 1v1 and cube and thing stuff for like a top-end finisher for like White Weenie and things like that. But it's not like Green Commander because it just kind of resets the game. It just grinds the game out and things like that. But the fact that this one also kind of like gets people back on their feet makes me like it a bit more. And while I wouldn't put like Armageddon in my cube, probably, I don't mind putting Fall of Thran in there because it's like, you know, having some like this one gives you the taste of a mass land destruction while still not like being a true mass land destruction. So yeah, I don't mind Fall of Thran. And it puts people back, but it doesn't put everyone back to square one. Next up is another one of the legendary sorceries. We have Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which is X red for a legendary sorcery.
Jaya's immolating inferno deals X damage to each of up to 3 target creatures. Any targets. This is honestly, I think, for just like red burn spells, like for this, like it's a fireball effect, but it has built into 3 targets and things like that, where a lot of decks will just care about this because it's like, oh, we just want to be a generic ramp spell and we'll do this, or the finisher for like an infinite mana combo. It also conveniently kills all 3 of your opponents with an infinite mana combo and things like that. In a pinch, it can be just a removal spell for things that you need to kill on board. Like, it's just one of those real good cards. Like, early game, like early to mid game, it can just be a 3-for-1, as well as also just being like a real solid like finisher in red. The thing is about red though is that like oftentimes red has trouble with like removal, because a lot of red's removal is like damage based. Like, this is no exception, but this is one of the better red damage based ones, and I quite like it. Also, it's really cool art. Next we have the Mirari Conjecture, which is a 5-mana saga with Chapter 1 is return target instant card from your graveyard to your hand, Chapter 2, return target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and Chapter 3, until end of turn, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, copy it. You may choose to target through the copy. So, it gets you back some instant sorceries, and then it reverberates all of your stuff on the 3rd chapter. Like, it's obviously best in like any sort of like spell slinging type deal, but honestly a lot of decks will just find use for this anyway, because most decks are running a fair few, like, okay, Chapter 1, okay, I'm getting back a removal spell, Chapter 2, I'm getting back a Wrath or Ramp or something, and then Chapter 3, it's like, okay, I recast them and get some bonuses on them. It's also one of those things where it just replenishing your resources really neat, and this one just does it in a really really neat way. Yeah. Also, it's really cool art, and I'm not biased because I know the person who made it. Nope. Yeah. Next up is, we're just going through a lot of sagas. A lot of the sagas are really cool. Like, sagas have the internal like problem of like, your opponents see it coming. They have time to react to it. That's at the same time, like, most people aren't willing to like waste a removal spell on a saga unless there's something that they really don't want to happen. But we got the Eldest Reborn, which is a 5-mana saga, which Chapter 1 is each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. I like this one because it's Chapter 1, edict targeting all opponents. Honestly, that's not a bad effect. Like, 5 mana is a bit overcosted, but it's not bad. Chapter 2, each opponent discards a card. Okay, like, theoretically, though, you've had a 6-for-1, and then Chapter 3 is you can reanimate something from anyone's graveyard into your control. So, if it plays out well, this is a 7-for-1, and also you get, like, whatever the best thing in a graveyard is. And it's just a real solid, that's just all around just really good value. There's not much to say that it's not fancy, but it's just good value. Like, any black deck, I think, is fine running this. Like, it doesn't have to care about sacrifice or discard or specifically a reanimation deck, but all those decks benefit from it, but otherwise it's just good. Oop, wrong way. More of these. We have the Mending of Dominaria, which is 3 green for first 2 chapters are mill yourself 2, and then you return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And in Chapter 3, you return all the lands from your graveyard into the battlefield, and then shuffle your graveyard into your library. So, I mean, it's a slow ramp spell in some ways, also while getting, like, recycling your deck and things like that, but just kind of like helping churning through your library. Like, any sort of like self-mill deck, like, doesn't mind this, assuming it doesn't want to like keep a full library or things like that. It also just like, it'll probably ramp you a little bit if the cube has like access to like fetch lands and stuff like that. It really helps with that and things like that. But otherwise, it's another one of those cards and effects. It's just like, it's nothing game breaking, but it's just real good value.
And also I like ramping, and that's why it's a bit higher than it should be. But it does it in a really cool way. Like, I love sprinted reclamation type effects, and this is a really cool sprinted reclamation type effect. Oh, I keep going the wrong way. Okay, next up we got Haphazard Bombardment. This is a 6-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, choose 4 non-enchantment permanents you don't control, and put an aim counter on each of them. At the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more permanents you don't control have an aim counter on them, destroy one of those permanents at random. So, it's a way for just like red to unconditionally kill creatures, which is nice. But I also like the random aspect of it. Like, I like, especially in Commander and especially Commander Cube, I like having that little bit of randomness that you don't really see necessarily in the same way in more like competitive formats. And I mean, I'm not saying like I like randomness galore, but like this is just like the right amount where it's like it's a really kind of like neat sort of effect. And granted, yes, like it is slow. You may not hit what you really need to hit, but at the same time, it's really fun, and it creates those really good experiences where it's like we really need to hit like, I don't know, this lightning greaves that's on like our opponents, like creatures and things like that, and, like creating those kind of like memorable experiences and moments, which is one of the things I prioritize when like designing a cube and things like that. And cards like this just also just has a solid power level on it, while also just kind of like being real like a real fun card. Next up we have Helm of the Host. Now, you probably saw this coming, but like this is honestly one of the best cards for Commander. Like, honestly one of the best cards in like the last like year of like 2018. And that's, okay, it's a 4-mana equipment with equip 5, so it's a steep mana cost. With the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token is not legendary if the equipped creature is legendary. That token gains haste. So there's lots of things that go infinite with this, like Aurelia, and other things that just get value if you're carrying it into the battlefield effects, or just getting duplicate copies of your commander and other things like that. It's just, it's very expensive to play and equip, but if you do, it has such a high ceiling for like what it can do. And yeah, there's not much else to say about Helm of the Host. Helm of the Host is just a very solid card. Like a lot of these are just kind of like not having legendary creatures actually really kind of like hurts the pool of Dominaria, because like a lot of the good like rares and uncommons were taken up by legendary creatures because there were so many legendary creatures in the set. But that said, I mean, Dominaria itself just has so much good stuff for Commander Cube in it. So I said like I normally leave out legendary creatures in the like this review, just because it's weirdness when it like depending on how a set uses a cube uses legendary creatures and whatnot, and I kind of want to avoid that, and oftentimes it just becomes the easy answer. But Dominaria is one of the sets where it's like, because of the legendary theme, I just can't ignore the existence of this creature, because it's just it's yes, it's a commander, but like it's just such a good card and fits in almost any deck that has its color. And it's also one of those ones that's just like you're so happy to first pick it. That's like, it's really the ones that like every cube needs to have. And that of course is Yargle, Glutton of Urborg. He is a 5-mana 9/3 with flavor text. But he's great. He's amazing. I drafted my commander cube and I had a Soul Ring in my pack 1. And I chose Yargle over Soul Ring. It wasn't the right choice mechanically if I wanted to win, and I didn't. I lost horribly. But in my heart, I made the right choice, and that was pack 1, pick 1 Yargle. And then I built Yargle Voltron, and it was terrible. But I had Yargle Voltron as my deck, and it was awesome. So what I'm saying is, Yargle is awesome. Yargle. But yeah, no, in all seriousness though, a lot of the benefits of like Dominaria are in the legendary features, but Yargle is great, mostly just like to have in the cube, because it's one of those things where it's like people will see it and like they'll go for it, and like, well, yes, this is an objectively not great card in Commander, and by that I mean it's an objectively bad card. While that said, while that is true, it creates for when you're creating that experience, and if you're having like a fun group of people, they'll choose Yargle because it's the right choice, and then they'll lose, so that's cool. But just for creating those experiences, it's really good. And like, sure, Yargle isn't like, it isn't a joke that all people will like appreciate or whatnot. It'll probably lose its luster a few years down the line and things like that. But that said, it's one of those things where it's don't be afraid to have kind of like inside jokes, or like not necessarily inside jokes, but like joke cards or weird things, like cards that will like people like open and say like, huh, really? Why is this in here? Because it's like, I don't know, like Commander Cube is like about encapsulating the essence of the Commander format, and kind of like the essence of the Commander format is that like kind of idea of like, it's weird cards, it's the format where anything is potentially playable in the right deck and things like that. And you know what, Yargle is really encapsulate this. And it's also Yargle, who's awesome because it's Yargle. I don't have much else to say. My mind has been derailed by Yargle. But yeah. But no, yeah, no, I'm gonna be doing, next few videos won't be magic because exciting times are coming up with Ravnica Allegiances, and then I have to do big set review week, yay! But yeah, and then I'll probably do the top 10 cards for Commander Cube from Ravnica Allegiance. Actually, I might do that before the set review because that'd be faster to make. But yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you like disagree with any of my like rankings and stuff. Like, honestly, like going back, like I actually made this list like a few weeks ago, but I might have rearranged the order of some of the sagas and stuff. I think a lot of them, I think like there's a lot of just really solid cards for Commander Cube in this set, but like apart from a few of them, none of them really outshine a lot of the others. Very few of them are like first pick slam dunk, like I want to play this, like this is something that like defines an archetype or something for me, because most of the archetype defining cards were in the commanders themselves, not in the other non-legendary cards. So yeah, well, that has been it for this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful night's sleep, and as always, may your story smile upon you.